But you did it, you did it, you did it, you did it, you dip to the bow. But you did it, you did it, you did it, you did it, you dip to the e-ow. Spuddy you did it, new now. Shabba little you don't bump bed, don't bump bed. Shabba you know, bum bum.
There we go. My first musical introduction on this show. Oh, that was great. That was wonderful. This is Python's Paradise, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Yeah, running a bit late. We are in winter, and my outside life is hectic. But my guest is not. He's looking very festive tonight. Folks, we are on February the 26th. We're almost through our second month of 2022, which means we got maybe one more month of hard winter here before, we can not worry so much about slipping off the roads. Folks, I got a return guest. He's been on here for 4 tribute interviews in the past with he's done tributes on Lucille Ball, Ella Fitzgerald, Mary Tyler Moore, and Steve Allen. And this is the 3rd time I've had him on as a solo, like about himself. Why? Because he is an entertainer in his own right. And we're going to get more of the gist of that. Looking very festive, and what looks like purple he's got on him.
A little bluish purple, a little sparkly bluish hope on my head.
There you go. There you go. Always festive. Folks, we have the awesomely talented Geoffrey Mark back with us. How, Geoffrey? How you doing?
Hello, 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 Python man, and hello, my Canadian friends.
Look at that. Your hat says hope on it.
It does.
We do need that, I'll tell you.
We do.
Yes.
I live with hope every day.
You know what? It would be great if this the whole pandemic would just go away.
I'm hoping for that. It's one of the things I hope for every day.
Yeah, it's been too much. I did get to go on vacation last year, which was nice because 2020 I did not. But last year I did get to go to Toronto and do a con, so that was nice.
I have not been on a vacation since 1987. Every bit of traveling I've done all around the world has been for work. And I haven't noticed it until just this minute. It's like, when was the last time I was on vacation? Oh, yes. Back in the 80s. My last vacation was to Puerto Rico. I was living in New York and I wanted to get out of the winter, and I went to Puerto Rico and I had a wonderful time. And then my life got really busy being in show business and being a celebrity. And I've performed in 39 countries and all over this part of the United States, in Canada, and no vacations. How about that? But then again, wow. Good career. So, you got to balance these things out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like, wow, not vacation since 1987. I was 15 that year. So
nobody asked you.
I was 15 that year and I'm going to be 50 this year.
Just because you got dimples, don't rub it in my face. But you're younger than I am.
Am I?
Oh, gosh, yes. Well, figure it out. If you were 15 in 1987 and I was on vacation in Puerto Rico, I wasn't 13 in Puerto Rico. I was a grown person.
So, I don't know. Maybe you were very, very ambitious and adventurous at that age.
Oh, I was. I'm a lucky guy. I don't look anywhere near my age, and that's fine. I've got good skin. I've got good genetics, and
Look, I know you're 39. Come on.
And they said, well, if you're gonna go there, you see. No, I'm happy with my age. Everybody knows my age because I can't lie about it. I've been in show business 48 years. I can't lie because I was on a stage in New York in the 70s. So for me to pretend like I'm 40 or 45 is kind of silly.
I was born in the 70s, the early
Yeah,
70s.
that's two. You get one more of these, and I start to protest.
Well, I'll tell you something I'm not protesting is your background there. You got a really nice background. I do love the two is that roses there behind you and the vases? Looks
Yes,
very, very nice.
those are crystal vases. The one on the left, this one was my grandmother's. This one was my great grandmother's, brought here from where? The Ukraine. So I'm happy to
Oh,
have that behind me.
yeah,
Over
Ukraine's
here
having
is
some problems.
over here is my Emmy Award. And then on this side of the wall is pictures of me with famous people. And there's this wonderful Brazilian artist who's done these series of caricatures of me. So I've got them up on the wall too. I tell people I'm the luckiest son of a gun on the planet. I met the
Hmm.
love of my life at 13. I got into my business at 15. I've had lots of ups and downs like everybody else has, but good heavens, you draw a line and add up everything. And I lucky, lucky, lucky.
Well, I'm hoping to draw some luck as well because I'll tell you, with I've been an essential worker through this whole pandemic, and I'll tell you, I think doctors and nurses are very, very important, but I don't know why cleaners are never mentioned in that conversation. And I worked through the entire pandemic, and the current job I've been at for 2 years, never missed a day.
Anybody in the last 2.5 years who has left their house to show up at a job and be exposed in the open is a hero. So you, sir, are a hero. I'm giving you hero vibes because you suited up, you showed up, you provided a service. I thank you.
I just gotta see if Skittles heard that, but Skittles is over there asleep. He said he doesn't want to hear all the stuff. He said all he wants to hear is the temptation bag rattling. That's all he wants to hear.
That bag seems to work for animals across the board and across North America. Just chicka, 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 they come running.
You know what? I watched video online a few years back where somebody was um, having an experiment. He took one of those little lighter things there where you turn the light off, you get the red light there, and the cat will or dog will chase after it.
Sure.
Well, this guy worked at the zoo. So he went there one night to see if the exotic cats would chase after it.
That's a mistake. Nothing good is going to come after that sentence.
It was interesting. The lions couldn't be bothered. The tiger yawned. The cheetahs, leopards, Black Panther, they yawned. They could care less. Um, I'm probably gonna butcher the name of this animal. The ocelot.
Ocelot.
Ocelot. He took interest. he ran after it.
Well,
And there
because he
was
would. If he wouldn't do that, they call him an ocelotl, but he's an
yeah.
ocelot.
And there was another one too that did too. I'm trying to think what was the name of that cat that was I don't remember. There was another one, but I remember that one definitely did, and that so yeah.
Well, this is fascinating. Let's talk about show business.
Let's talk about show business. Let's talk about show business. I've sad the other just yesterday finding out we lost Sally Kellerman. Did you know Sally?
There's levels of knowing. There are
Hmm.
people in show business. I've met almost everybody at one time or another. you go to show business events together, you go to award shows, you walk red carpets or parties and get to shake their hands, and you've met them. Other people, it's a small conversation every 6 months. And then there are people that you actually have dinner with and talk on the phone with. I met Sally. I admired her work greatly. Um, she had a very unique voice with which she made a fortune. And but I didn't get to know her very well, but just the news of her passing was very sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I know she was famous for playing Hot Lips Callahan and MASH, but I think I was most endeared to her in Back to School because she because you see her play an antagonist a lot, but in Back to School, she played opposite Rodney Dangerfield very, very nicely, and they had great chemistry together.
She was also in the second pilot of Star Trek and played off of Bill Shatner very nicely. That's where
There
I
you go.
first became aware of her, was on
Yeah.
Star Trek.
So you've met almost everybody. You meet Emma Stone. I love Emma Stone.
Okay. Then I need to amend my sentence. I've met everybody in show business over the age of 60, many of them over the age of 50. The ones, the current crop of movie stars, not so much. Not because I have no interest, but back in the day, as folks say, show business people kind of congregated together. There were common watering holes. There were clubs you belonged to. The Friars Club. I was a member of the Friars Club in Beverly Hills. So just you naturally all sort of came together. The young ones today don't do that. They've all got their own personal chefs. They don't go out to eat. They stay home, or they're busy drinking and doing drugs. And I don't do those kinds of things. So I don't get it. I don't get to intermingle with them unless we're all at an event together. And because I'm not 25 or 30, I'm not a peer to them. I'm a generation up, at least a generation up from them. So, you want to talk about Milton Berle? Yeah, I got stories. You want to talk about Mary Martin and Ethel Merman? I've got stories. But you want to talk about the latest, greatest pop singer? I adore Adele. What a talented lady. I've never met her. Lady Gaga, I've met very badly, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
On my
I
part, I was an idiot. I was at a show business function. I can't even tell you what the function was anymore. And it was in right at the beginning of her career. And my Ethel Merman book had come out. And this creature, all dressed up, taller than I, walks over and waxes poetic about my work and walks away. And the person I was standing with said, "Wow, you must be so impressed." I said, "Well, why? I've met drag queens before." He said, "That wasn't a drag queen. That was Lady Gaga." The same thing happened to me at the Grammys, the year I was nominated in the 90s. There was a party for all the nominees that year at the Santa Monica Airport Historical Museum at the airport. And you're looking around, we're all carrying food and walking and looking at all the aircraft stuff. And this very nice African-American man walks up to me and said, "Oh, I hope you win tomorrow. I voted for you and you're wonderful and I admire your work," and walked away. And again, someone standing next to me said, "You must really be like," I said, "Well, it's always nice to hear nice things about my work." He said, "You don't know who that is?" I said, "No, it was Babyface, who was nominated that year as both as a performer and as a producer." And I just didn't know who he was.
I wouldn't know who he was, but the other, yeah. Talk about that award, I've seen those before, and talk about what it was like to win that. Did you believe you were going to win? Because everybody's like,
Well,
competition.
we have to be honest.
Okay.
And the Grammy was a nomination. I didn't win.
Oh.
Well, but I found out something very interesting. You find out that you're nominated. Oh gosh, maybe 2 months before the actual ceremony.
Okay.
And then they send you stuff and you get told, when to show up and where to go. And as a nominee, there's a whole week of events you go to. It's not just the awards themselves. It's a whole week of parties and song Hall of Fame dinners, and you're kind of feted all week long leading up to. And in fact, the Song Hall of Fame dinner, I sat with Patty Andrews of the Andrews Sisters
Mhm.
and Glenn Miller's children and Jack Carter, who was my date for the evening. So I was in royalty in show business at a buffet, but a wonderful, wonderful show business evening. And then the day of, I was having lunch with a friend of mine before we started getting ready to go to the ceremonies. And right about noon, I turned to him and I said, you know what? From this moment on, I am not responsible for anything I say or do. I am so nervous. I am so worried to lose. If I win, what do I do? And I understand why so many celebrities make fools of themselves at these award shows, especially the ones who have never been nominated before. Because I was a babbling idiot. And it was an interesting awards because it was done at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, downtown LA. And they had already started not showing the whole show on television anymore. So literally my category, Frank Sinatra's category, Lena Horne's category, a lot of big categories didn't get on the air. So you're sitting down front. I forget the name of the nice man who won that year, but he came over to me with the thing in his hand and said, I want you to know I almost didn't show up today. I was so sure you were going to win. This really does belong to you. I got it because they're voting for rock and roll this year, not jazz, which is a lovely thing for him to say to me. And then they ask you all to move back so the big stars can come in and sit up front from television cameras. And Ellen DeGeneres was the host that year. It's a lovely, and then afterwards, it's just all these parties, just party, 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 every kind of food, every kind of drink, every kind of music you can think of, multiple ballrooms. It's an incredible experience. It is a big thrill to be nominated. It is. And forever and ever, I have a gold medal from Tiffany's as a Grammy nominee. And I can go to any Grammy event with that around my neck and get it. It's good to know that your peers think you do good work and
It
you're
is nice.
recognized. I don't know anybody in show business, no matter how confident they are in their talent. And I'm, 48 years at this, I'm pretty confident that I'm good at what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always that little bit of, but do they think so? And getting nominated for an award or winning an award like the Emmy here, it just tells you, yes, you really are as good as you think you are. And, or at least they think so. Highlight of my life.
Yeah, I've won one award. Actually, I've got it up here, and I was so happy to win it.
It's a pretty award.
Yeah, 2016 Critics' Choice Best Spoken Word Show, Python's Paradise.
Hey, and I've been on it many times, so yay.
Yeah, I've been nominated a few times. We haven't had it the last couple of years because of, something going on in the world that we wish wasn't going on. But I was happy to be nominated, but I was really happy to win. It was nice to win one of these. And so yeah, it's a really nice award. I'm very happy to have it. And yeah, this was it's the first time I ever showed it on here, so you got to see it.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Yeah. So it was nice to win that. I always am happy if I get nominated, but if I win, it's even better. But I try to keep myself grounded and try to keep myself Um, I always try to look at my competition and think they work just as hard as me, and
But do they? I wonder about that sometimes. It
mm-hmm,
sounds like a terribly old cliche.
mm-hmm.
How much luck and hard work are intermingled. And I wonder sometimes that there are people, and I don't know why they are, who are jealous of me. They like, why did you break through and I haven't? And it's luck. Of course it's luck. I'm the luckiest guy on the planet. But maybe also it's that I've done my homework and I've done my hard work. And every time I've been asked to do something, I never do anything halfway. I don't walk through things. I'm currently rehearsing a radio play. I've been asked to do a radio show. Now, the last time these people asked me to do it, I starred as Jack Benny in a Jack Benny script. And it was a ball to do that. This time, I'm the narrator. And you know what? I'm bringing the announcer, you're listening to the Columbia Broadcasting System. I bring the same professionalism. I do the same hard work, no matter what I do. I don't sing half-assed. If I'm
No.
going to sing, I do my best. Even, hey, Jeff, can you do 5 minutes to stand up? The next guy is running late. Can you fill in for, yeah. And for those 5 minutes, I do my very, very best. If I'm going to be on your show or anyone's show, I'm wearing a sparkly hat. I've got a sparkly scarf on. I put on some makeup to look young and handsome and vigorous and, have somebody out there say, "Ooh, he's cute."
I like
Because
the red facial hair. I gotta say,
thank
you
you.
don't see that all the time.
Well, I was born a redhead, so
Mm-hmm.
it's a funny thing about being a redhead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a redhead, not a ginger. I'm a redhead.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, everybody in my family had black hair. I was the only one who had the lighter hair, and I felt out of place. And people make fun of redheads. There are all kinds of not so fun nicknames you get.
I
As
don't
I've got,
get that because growing up, usually like when I go chasing after girls, a lot of times I was always drawn to the redheads.
well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Like,
I'm not a girl, but on behalf of redheads, I'm
well,
glad you admire redheads.
I remember in the growing up in the 80s, some of the women I had crushes on. One was Cyndi Lauper, who had just blastingly glowing orange hair,
Right.
Of course, she was such an interesting personality.
And a great talent.
I love Cyndi. I love that little Betty Boop voice, and love Cyndi. And then later in the 80s, I had posters of Tiffany all over my bedroom wall.
There you go.
And I actually had Tiffany on the show back 5 years ago. And it was, I'd be beside myself because I remember way back when I had posters of her on my wall. I drove my folks up the wall. I said, I'm going to marry that woman. And well, that hasn't happened, but at 15, you say you're going to do a lot of things that you don't do. And
Well, see, that's where I was lucky. At 15, I was already doing it.
yep.
Not,
So,
just life worked out that way. I found myself out of the house. My parents kicked me out. So there I was, having to make a living, having to start my life, and show business was always what called me. So there I was. So I was doing dinner theater at 15. I made my first movie at 16. I was off Broadway at 17. I was working at the Playboy Club at 18.
mhm.
Um, which is not to say it wasn't really hard work, which is not to say that I was wealthy doing all of that. It isn't, or that I didn't starve a little bit like everybody else in show business does from time to time. It's not a smooth ride. It's always that roller coaster up and down thing in show business. But all these years later, here I am still luckiest guy on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a show of my own. Geoffrey Mark Plays Ella.
There
That's
you go. Oh yeah, we did a tribute on Ella Fitzgerald. Yep.
every
Yep.
week. Geoffrey Mark Plays Ella. We play Ella's music to a theme of some sort. And in between the songs, I give you all the insider information and a little bit of gossip and why this song is important or that arranger is important. And it's available wherever platforms are. Every platform carries it. And now we're on 3 radio stations in the United States. We're hoping to grow into Canada on radio. So any of you guys out there who are looking for a show like that, get a hold of me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to be on the air in Canada.
Yeah. Now, back on the redhead thing, my current crush is Emma Stone, and she's kind of a redhead.
No Lucille Ball for you?
You know what? I never had a crush on Lucille Ball, but I always found her funny. But I'll tell you somebody I definitely had eyes on, and she went way too soon. But I'd never seen a woman more beautiful than Grace Kelly, Um, Grace is like, I look at her and I'm like, is this a real human being? Come, I am so envious of James Stewart in Rear Window in that sequence where he's asleep in the wheelchair and his shadow is casting over him and he opens his eyes slowly and there's Grace Kelly's gorgeous face coming towards him. And then slow motion, she bends down and kisses him. And I'm like, that would be a way to wake up, But as much as I love Emma Stone, I gotta say, for the most part, actors today don't have that aurora that actors back then have. Because people like your Grace Kelly, your Marilyn Monroe's, your Audrey Hepburns, there was something about them that was very classic, very there's a reason why you see them on calendars and stuff every year.
Well, I think I have a good reason why, what the difference is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a couple of reasons. First of all, there was no public media. So there was no Facebook, there was no Zoom, there was no Instagram, there was no Twitter, there was no TMZ. So we celebrities were not intruded on back then like we are now.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is that if you're talking about movie stars, something I have not been, I've been in a couple of movies, but I'm not a movie star. But the movie stars were all under contracts. See, they didn't go from independent production to independent production to independent production. They were on a salary by a major studio who tailored their look, their costuming, their makeup, their hair, and the parts to whatever talents they actually had. And the studios controlled their publicity. So we never saw photos of our stars not looking perfect, not looking well-groomed, not looking anything less than almost regal. So we had that distance between us and them where we were the lucky recipients of their talents sitting in a theater someplace. And in those days with the big movie palaces with 1,000 other people at the same time watching a movie, but we didn't get up close to them. Today, the stars pose in bikinis and topless and on beaches and no makeup, and it's a different kind of thing. Each star has its own publicity machine. Heck, even I have one. If you want to be anywhere, you have to have a publicist.
Mm-hmm.
Harlan Bowl is mine, as you know.
Yeah, I like Harlan. Yeah,
I love Harlan. He's one of the finest human beings I've ever known.
I first come to know him when I unfortunately we lost Peter Mark Richmond.
Yes.
And I've had Peter Mark on my show twice.
A lovely
And
man. I knew him.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. The first time I had him on, it was on through Facebook through his daughter Kelly.
Yes.
And then the second time, Kelly had instructed me to go through Harlan. And that was how it got arranged the second time. And Harlan was a very, very nice guy. Wonderful to me. We did share a phone conversation because he was the one that said that Peter Mark Richmond didn't want to be called by Peter, but Peter Mark. And I was like, okay, okay, you know. Um, so I had Peter Mark on twice, and very brave guy too, because he was already declining
Yes, he was.
whenever I had him on the first time. So, but his marriage I admire because you hear about people in the business being married for such a short time. He's married the same woman all that time, and I know he praised his children up and down. I was like, I liked him. I knew him as playing the grumpy nasty professor in Friday the 13th Part 8 Jason Takes Manhattan, which is not a good movie, but I will say this, if I watch the movie, Peter Mark Richmond's the best part of it,
Well,
you
Peter
know.
Mark was in a series of television shows before you
Mhm.
were born, even. He was one of those people, if you watched dramatic television in the 60s and 70s and early 80s,
Mhm.
uh, every other week he was on something. If he wasn't on the FBI, he was on Mannix. If he wasn't on Mannix, he was on the Rockford Files. If he wasn't on the Rockford Files, he was on some other dramatic show. He was very versatile. He was very handsome. He was very smart, and a lovely, lovely man. I got to know him because of Harlan, and we keep talking about Harlan still is. He's still with us. He's still my publicist, and
Mhm.
he's doing very, very well. I want to make that clear that nobody thinks we've lost Harlan, because we have not by any stretch of the imagination.
I sent him a message letting him know that I actually, again, talk about how I was running behind. I sent him the message I was interviewing you this morning, of all things. And it wasn't out of neglect. It's just been everything's been going on at once because when we had people quit the job, my pay job, I get called a lot. So I'm here, and and I just hit me last night. I said, I gotta reach out to Harlan, let him know, that I'm having you on. How long have you been with Harlan Bull?
Oh gosh, at least 10 years.
Okay, okay. Yep,
And
I'm.
and he has, this may sound terribly egotistical, but I'm being told this by people out there like you.
Hmm.
He's lifted me from being a kind of well-known celebrity to just about the point where some people are calling me a star. There are people who are actually calling me a cultural icon at this point,
Hmm.
because I've lasted so long in the business. That's because of Harlan. The look, the
Hmm.
sparkles and everything, that is because of Rip Taylor. Uh, Rip Taylor came to see me perform in Los Angeles many years ago.
Hmm.
And we went out to dinner afterwards with Chuck McCann, who name may mean something to some people out there.
I know that name.
Chuck was a children's host in New York, but he voiced hundreds and hundreds of cartoons and did commercials, and made a fortune doing those kinds of things. And Rib said to me, Geoffrey, you are magic on the stage. Am I allowed to curse on this show, sir?
Go ahead, go ahead.
He said, you are magic on the stage, but you dressed like a fucking accountant. And he sent me to my first store where I found my first sparkly hat. And I won't go into the whole long story of the first time I wore the hat, but the audience loved it. And then I got 2 hats, and then I had 10. I have over 100 hats. I have a closet full of sparkly vests and shirts and scarves and shoes and hats and fedoras, and it's become my trademark, and it's helped make me a little star. Let's put it that way.
Now, I know you, last tribute interview we did was Steve Allen, and I know you were close with Steve Allen. What did he think of the sparkly hats?
He laughed at them. No, he understood. He
Oh,
understood.
he was great. Yes.
He
Yes.
understood why I was doing it.
Uh-huh.
Steve had his own trademarks,
Mm-hmm.
and Steve wore a toupee to look younger. Jane, his wife, wore wigs and heavy duty makeup and padded dresses, and you do what you have to do to look well for the public. He understood that. I had a lovely conversation with Jane. I don't know if we talked about this when we visited that time. After Steve passed away, I was at another show business function. I don't remember where we were. And Jane and her son, Bill, were discussing, Steve had done an interview with Al Jolson on the radio in Los Angeles in the late 40s. It's the only real interview Al Jolson ever gave. And Steve recorded it and released it as a record after Jolson died. And Jane was asking her son, I was looking for the master pressing, the one they take the rest of them from. I can't find it. And I said, well, Jane, I have it. Steve gave it to me as a gift. And she started to say something and stopped herself. And she sort of patted my arm and said, oh, good. It's in good hands. And she started to walk away and then came back to me and put her hand back on my arm. And she said, Geoffrey, you weren't the biggest star Steve ever discovered, but you were the last one. And what a lovely thing to hear.
Wow. How do you think Steve Allen would have handled social media today?
He would have had an extra secretary. He already had 3 of them or 4 of them. He would have hired a 5th person. Steve worked like I've never seen anyone else work. Steve never typed anything. Steve never wrote anything. Steve had a little mini tape recorder, and every time he had a good thought that could go into a book, go into a monologue, go into a show, put this in the blank file, blah, 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 blah. Secretary number 2, I have an idea for a script. I want to do a show about Geoffrey Mark's hats. I'll put that in the file. And he would have just taped himself saying, send this out on Twitter, put this on Instagram. We have a picture on Facebook. Let's add this to that. He would have been very involved with it because his mind never stopped. I would spend hours with Steve. There was never a lag in conversation. Now, I'm kind of verbose. As you already know, if you never asked me a question, I could fill 2 hours here just talking because that's who I am.
Oh, you're well spoken. That's why I love
you.
having you on. Yeah.
But with Steve, it was a very enjoyable ping pong game. He would just come up with concepts and throw them at you, or I'd come up with a concept and throw them at him, and we would discuss it. Like, Steve, this is Jeff talking now. I loved, and I did, all those Goodson Todman panel shows. I've Got a Secret, What's My Line, To Tell the Truth, Password. I love them. Match Game. I said, they've revived all of them since the originals, except What's My Line. They really haven't, since the 70s, redone that. Everybody else has gotten redone. And he said, Jeff, What's My Line was a comedy of manners. What made this show funny is that we didn't know what the other person actually did for a living. And we were asking innocent questions, but sometimes there was a double entendre there that we didn't understand, but the audience did. And they knew we would never say it because we had good manners. He said, there are no manners today. You can't have a comedy of manners where there are no manners. What an insightful thing to think about. It would never have occurred to me that was the reason. And then as soon as he said it, of course, that's the reason. One of the sadnesses of my life, the last time I saw Steve, I was there as a producer interviewing him on camera for a program I was producing. And as we finished up, he said, Geoffrey, you write lyrics? I said, yeah, I do. He said, you know what? He said, I have about 100 tunes I've written, but there's no lyrics. Why don't you, let me send them to you. And you pick out 10 that you really like. Why don't you put some lyrics to them? Let's make an album. 5 days later, he passed away. And I called Jay and I said about those lyrics. He said, Geoffrey, I can't. I have no idea what he would have approved and wouldn't have approved. I can't go forward with something not knowing what his thought would have been about it. So that the project never happened, which is just very, very sad. I mean, what a wonderful compliment that he thought I could do it. And then for it not to happen. What can you do?
Well, you have met a lot of people, and you have mentioned here at the start of the show, Milton Berle and Ethel Merman. And I know we've mentioned them briefly before, but not in any great detail. Talk about your connection with Milton Berle.
Milton Berle, I mean, other than admiring him greatly like everybody else did, for those of you friends of ours out there who are listening and watching this, whenever you happen to be listening and watching this, if you don't know who Milton Berle was, Milton Berle had been a big star in what was called vaudeville, live variety shows. He had been a pretty good star on radio when that was the major medium. He had been on Broadway. He had been in films. So he was a very well-known quantity. And then especially as the years went by and vaudeville died, in nightclubs. In 1948, when television in the United States was really, it had been around a couple of years, but was like really like, okay, folks, we're doing this. Milton started a show called the Texaco Star Theater, sponsored by the Texaco Gas Company. And it became the #1 show in the country. And he was deemed Mr. Television. And after that, he was just an icon, no matter what he did. And there were plenty of movies and plenty more television shows and nightclub appearances and award ceremonies. He was Mr. Television. I met him because I was writing my first book about Lucille Ball's television career. And Jack Carter, who was a mutual friend, took me to the Friars Club to meet him. I had not become a member of the Friars Club yet. This is my first time in the Friars Club. And Milton had his own table. So it's Milton, his best friend and head writer, Buddy Arnold, Jack Carter, and myself sitting. What do you say to a legend? And I learned early on, from the earliest days I met big stars, it's okay to say you're a fan or that you're an admirer of their talent. It's not good to carry on and fawn like a fan. It makes them uncomfortable, and there's no conversation to that. So we sat down, we ordered our food. It's like, okay, Jeff, you get one chance. What are you going to say? This is what I said. I said, Milton, on March 22nd, 1949, Ethel Merman had just closed after 3.5 years in Annie Get Your Gun. And the very first television show she did was with you. And you and she did a sketch where, and as I said, where he picked up 2 very long, bony, arthritic fingers and did this, poke them in the air like Mo Howard from the Three Stooges poking Curly in the face, the eye poke thing. And I did it the same moment. And the reason we did that is that on live television, they kind of had a fight. He got unprofessional and then she got unprofessional, and there was a tussle while they were singing a song. You don't see anything like that anymore. And he said, how in the hell do you know about that? I said, well, I saw it. He said, how could you see it? It was live television before you were born. I said, I own the kinescope of it. He said, I don't. I said, you do now. And we had friendship, because Milton loved people who knew show business history. If you could sit with him and talk about vaudeville, which I could, that I knew who the difference between Fink's Mules and Swain's Rats and Cats as an opening act in vaudeville, that I really knew the history of radio and television. I knew his career inside and out. You were a friend. That's what he loved to do, besides smoking cigars and gambling. And it was Milton who got me smoking Cuban cigars. Milton illegally got Cuban cigars in the country. It started with President Kennedy. As a gift to Milton, President Kennedy allowed sort of a backdoor thing for Milton to get his Cuban cigars in this country. And then Milton, if he liked you, he'd share. So we used to sit in what became the George Burns Groucho Marx smoking room at the Friars Club. And we would just do these just incredible Cuban cigars. And I have COPD, and the filtration system there was so good that the smoke went directly up. It didn't even waft in front of your face. The minute the smoke hit the air, it was gone. So even someone like I could smoke it and not go all over the place. So, and I will say, because you're going to ask anyway, that Milton did invite me to go with him to the men's room, and Milton did indeed show me what everyone talks about, Milton having a blessed endowment, and I will tell you it was indeed blessed. I mean, we didn't play together. He just showed it to me as you're part of my group now. Here you go.
Yeah.
How many of your guests can tell that story?
Not many. Just you. Now, Ethel Merman, you had mentioned, and I'm going to tell when I think of Ethel Merman, and I'm hoping I'm not downsizing her to say this, but anytime I hear the name Ethel Merman, I think of that scene in Airplane where they're at the hospital where the military guys are being patched up, and Robert Hayes is there with Julie Haggerty, and he's saying this guy shell shocked or something like that, and then he says, then you got
thinks he's Ethel Merman.
I like it because you got Ethel Merman in the bed. It starts doing the song, and it's so good. And then the attendants, put the needle in her, and they go back.
Everything's coming up roses.
And
she had to be a big enough show business icon for that to work.
Yeah, but I loved Robert. The exchange there, Julie Haggerty goes, "What's wrong with him?" Because of course we're supposed to believe it's a soldier, He goes, "What's wrong with him?" He goes, I forget what he says, but he goes, thinks he's Ethel Merman, and it's Ethel Merman. I thought that was great, but I love the gusto when she gets out of the bed, and starts belting that out. They attendants just grab her.
Ethel Merman was the biggest star of Broadway musicals ever. All due respect to my friend Mary Martin, Ethel Merman starred in 16 hit Broadway musicals. I mean, there wasn't one flop. There were some shows that ran longer than others. There were some shows where may have been only one really great, memorable song, and there were scores where the entire score was memorable. But from 1930 to 1970, nobody had a career like Ethel Merman. And I won't bore our friends out there listing names of shows or names of songs, but she introduced about 45 songs through the years that became standards. And there's just nobody else was able to hit that mark. And there's nobody who's going to be able to do that anymore because show business has changed. There aren't that many Broadway musicals made every year. And Merman was on over and over and over again. And you have a very pretty pussy cat in your
Skittles
hands
just
right
happened to rush over here. And when he does this while I'm doing interviews, which is not often anymore, I'm going to stick him up here.
now. Well, he's a very pretty kitty, a very handsome boy.
Yep. Skittles, you hear that? He's your handsome.
Maybe he likes the sound of my voice.
Yeah. Skittles is like, you're using me for hits. This is exploitation. This is exploitation. I'm like, Kitty,
It's catsploitation.
Kitty, you're living here for free. You're living here for free, Kitty. Kitty, are you going to sing an Ethel Merman tune for me, huh? Skittles is like, yeah. I said, I heard you say something about a temptation bag. Skittle.
Anyway, I wrote a book about Miss Merman. I got to meet her several times.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't friends. I can't claim friendship with her,
Mm-hmm.
but she was a force to be reckoned with. And once I saw her perform on stage, you immediately understood why everybody loved her so much. There was a power that came out of her, not just the power of her voice. I'm talking about from her soul out came this energy that infiltrated the entire audience. You couldn't look at anybody else and you couldn't wait for the next thing out of her mouth. She was very funny. Give her comedy lines and she hit the mark every time. She practically stole It's a Mad, 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 Mad World from a dozen top comedians because she's that good.
Mm-hmm.
And she sang like nobody else. If you heard her in a theater, you understood why her voice was so admired. It kind of lost something with a microphone. It lost something in films and in television. The power didn't come across. It just sounded like she was shrieking a little bit. But if you saw her live in any kind of a venue, a nightclub, a concert hall, a Broadway stage, you understood why the world just fell at her feet.
Well, I'm going to tell you, even that little cameo she did in Airplane, she took that and ran with it, and you still remember it today, you know?
No, she knew how to be funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, talk about your encounters with her.
Well, may I give you an example of her humor?
Sure.
In the late 30s, around 1938, Ethel Merman was signed by 20th Century Fox for a 3-picture deal. She wasn't going to be an employee. She wasn't getting a long-term contract. They were giving her three movies to see what they could do with her. But they had an Ethel Merman day at 20th Century Fox Studios. They had a luncheon for her, welcome Ethel Merman banners, and they took her on a tour. And they took her to a Loretta Young set. Loretta Young was their biggest star, and Loretta Young had just had a drama in her life. Clark Gable had gotten her pregnant, and very religious Loretta would not have an abortion, but also could not let her audience know that she was having a baby out of wedlock. So she had pretended to be ill, told the press she was dying, went to San Francisco and had the baby, came back to LA and said, good heavens, Jesus saved me. I'm alive. And to thank him, by gosh, I'm going to go adopt a child out of gratitude, and went back up to San Francisco and adopted her own daughter. And everybody in the business knew this. Nobody on the outside knew it. And Merman knew it from being in the business. Loretta at that point became a born-again Catholic. One could not even say hell or damn on her set. If you cursed, she had an old-fashioned coffee can with a slit in it, and it was 25 cents for Catholic charities. Anytime anyone swore around her, they bring Merman on the set, and there's this great big staircase, which of course goes nowhere. It's a set, and Merman knew this, right? She was just being cute. She came out and looked up, and she goes, "Where the hell does this go?" And Loretta comes out and goes, "Oh, Miss Merman, you said the H word. That'll be 25 cents. Chinka, 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 chinka." And Merman smiles at her back and goes, "Tell me, Loretta, how much will it cost me to tell you to go fuck yourself?" So, Miss Merman did not suffer anyone gladly, foolish or not. And she knew all the words. Miss Merman swore a lot. That just was her personality.
I love that response she gave,
I first met her in 1970 when she was on Broadway doing Hello, Dolly.
Hmm.
My parents would not let me go to see the show, but we happened to be in Manhattan. I bolted from them. I somehow found the stage door of the St. James Theater where Dolly was, and there was no one waiting for her. And I thought, maybe I'm wrong. Nope. Out comes Ethel Merman. I'm the only one there. And it surprised me. I mean, I'd seen her dozens and dozens of times on television and in films, and she looked old, older than I thought, and very, very tired. So I just sort of walked with her gingerly to her limousine that was waiting for her. I opened the door. I helped her get in her limo. "Thanks, kid." That was our first meeting. So I was shy of 11, or around being 11 years old or 12 years old. But we ran into each other several times in life. Like I said, we never became friends. Mary Martin and I had long conversations. With Ethel, it was a hello. It was a backstage hello, but very quick. There are other people out there who are, I mean, anybody else practically was closer than I was. She wasn't a terribly warm person, I don't think, meaning there are celebrities who are happy to meet their fans. I mean, really happy to meet their fans. I am. I never mind. If I'm eating dinner, come over and say hello. I never, ever mind. Ethel, it's like, I sang for you. I did what I'm supposed to do. Why are you here? Was kind of her attitude. She begrudgingly signed autographs. She did it because it's a thing to do, but she didn't love it. She didn't really have a whole bunch of fans that she was greatly in touch with. By the time she was in her late 60s, mid to late 60s, most of Ethel Merman's friends were gay men who appreciated her dirty jokes, who were not a sexual threat to her, who didn't want anything from her. Just she enjoyed their company. They got who she was. She could be herself and enjoy herself. And that was important to her.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I see her point. She says, "I signed for you. What more do you want?" And but I got to admit, I really admire celebrities that not only get their fans, they realize the importance. I'm going to tell you. I don't know if I mentioned this on here before, but if not, here it is. I used to be a big supporter of Jennifer Lawrence and loved Silver Linings Playbook and whatnot. And then she did something that completely turned me off of her to the point where get me to go to one of her movies now is not common. She says that well, again, if you approach somebody in a restaurant, you're taking a risk. But but she's been quoted, and I've this has been several places, and I've heard her say it in interviews, where she says that she don't like doing selfies with fans because she don't know who these people are, but yet she'll flip out like it's the best thing in the world when she's having a selfie with another celebrity, and I'll tell you one thing I've noticed with her, and this really turned me off of her as well. She never says her best friend so and so. She always says my best friend Amy Schumer, as if she's trying to tell us what class of person she is. And it's like, and this is one of the things I liked about the contrast between her and Emma Stone. Jennifer Lawrence gets married, everybody knows about it. Jennifer Lawrence has a child, everybody knows about it. Emma Stone not only is funny and she's attractive, she's extremely talented, but she's also pretty private, I've noticed. I love it when she brings up her brother Spencer in interviews, because her brother Spencer's not a star. But I love it also with Emma that when she got married, it wasn't, unless paparazzi caught something, it was not a big announcement. In fact, I believe it was during the pandemic where she was able to just kind of sneak under the radar. When she got pregnant, it was only caught because paparazzi seen her out and around with her mask on doing running errands. She didn't make a big deal about it. It was a big deal to her personally.
Everybody handles celebrity differently. And also everybody has different people working for them. Like my publicist, Harlan Ball.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I happen to have been a witness to John Lennon's assassination,
Ah.
but he does not put that in my biography. He does not sell me as someone who should be on talking about being there. He feels I should be on talking about my accomplishments or singing or doing comedy or telling wonderful stories,
Mm-hmm.
but not using that as a propellant for my career. Uh, I was with the same man for 46 years and nobody knew about it because it wasn't germane. First of all, he was terribly private,
Mm-hmm.
terribly private. That's a whole, we could do a whole 2 hours about my 46-year relationship with someone who unfortunately was ashamed to be who he was. But his name was Joel Kabik, and I adored him. We have children and grandchildren together, and he died 3 years ago, and I miss him like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody knew it. And when he passed away, I announced it on Facebook, but I didn't use his death to get me publicity. And Harlan, if I'd wanted that, Harlan would not have allowed it because he's just not that. There are publicists out there who are always looking. When you read the paper, if you still read the paper, or you look at headlines on the internet or on platforms, so and so's baby bump, so and so was seen dancing with so and so's bikini revealed too much. Ooh, we saw her nipple. Oh, we saw his bulge. How dare they? That's all planted by their own publicists to keep us talking about them. And that's their choice. They choose to have a publicist who does that kind of publicity. Harlan doesn't do that. So all the publicity for all of his many wonderful clients is about our talent and what we're doing. And if we're doing any charity work, he'll do that, but not fluff stuff. He just doesn't deal with that. So it could be, if any celebrity turns you off, it could be who's handling them. It could be a manager's decision. It could be a publicist's decision, or it could be the celebrity. In the 70s, I went and saw Pearl Bailey do Hello, Dolly in a revival. She was wonderful. And I went backstage. She wasn't having any. She had little, like 3-inch by 5-inch little itty bitty pictures of her already signed, not to you, just her name. She'll hand those out as she's walking to her limousine, but she won't shake your hand. She won't give you an autograph. She won't stop and discuss anything with you. That's her decision. Uh, some people are terribly private. We're all kind of different that way. I'll
Yeah.
talk about, if you ask a question about, but there have been people who knew about my relationship with Joel and wanted to talk about that. I'll answer, I won't tell you what we did in bed together. That's nobody's business, but I'll tell you how I met him at 13 and how we lasted so long together. And I'll happily tell you about my wonderful kids and grandchildren if somebody asks, but I don't go on TV or radio or podcasts to talk about them to get attention.
Mm-hmm.
If any, all of that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Ethel
And-
Merman's best friends, the people she claimed as her best friends, were two of the girls she went to high school with. Because she said, they love me for being Ethel, and we remember the same things. Because they lived the same kind of lives at the same time. There are other people who become famous, and I have a little bit of this in my life too, where your non-show business friends get jealous. They think you've changed. Well, no, you've changed. You're jealous, or you don't know how to relate to my career. Jeff, why do you talk about celebrities so much? Why do you talk about your coworkers so much? These are my coworkers. This is what I do for a living. You knew that walking in.
Mm-hmm.
So for some people, like Rosemary was a dear, dear friend of mine from the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Okay.
Rosie didn't particularly care for people who worked in show business. She called them civilians. Like being in show business is being in the military. And only other military people really get that kind of life. She felt she was really only comfortable around people who were in the business, who understood the lingo, who understood the lifestyle. That's what she wanted. There were other people who, Dawn Wells was a dear, dear friend of mine.
We
When
unfortunately lost her too.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
When you went to a party at her house, there were a few celebrities there, but there were other people from other walks of life. No photos were allowed. If you pulled out a camera or a phone, she said, no, this is private time. This is not a photo opportunity. And she encouraged her guests to discuss concepts, discuss what if questions. We'd eat, we'd be sitting around her living room. Hey, what if somebody you loved dearly committed a felony? Would you tell the police or would you cover up for them? Ooh, there's something to think about. And we'd spend hours discussing that kind of what if thing. Or we'd play games, but it had nothing to do with being a celebrity or being in show business. So everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's just like one way to be, except don't be obnoxious. There's never an excuse for being obnoxious to another celebrity or to a fan. The only time I've ever been less than charming is there are times fans really push. Now, Jeff's a little star. I could only imagine with great big stars how this works. Oh, can you give me the phone numbers of 17 other celebrities? Can I come to your house? I cannot tell you how many people have wanted me to invite them to my house so they could watch I Love Lucy with me. And I can't tell you how many of them have also wanted to perform a sex act on me while we were watching I Love Lucy. I mean, dozens and dozens of these people. Well, you can't engage with those kind of folks. It's dangerous because they're nuts. And also, who knows what they're going to tell the press? And why would I want to do that anyway? So you're having people coming at you from all kinds of angles. Someone like my friend Lucy Arnaz, she shepherds her parents' estates. She runs her husband, Larry Luckenbill, very famous actor, his career. She has a huge career on Broadway and doing shows and cabaret and singing. Well, you know, her phone rings 24 hours a day with people wanting stuff. Can I have an interview? Can I have a picture? Can I have permission? Can you be on my show? Can I have so and so's number? Can you get so and so to talk? I mean, literally ring, 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 ring all day long. What do you do? So it's not like it's an isolated incident. This goes on all the time. I think Lucy is brilliant in how she handles it. I've never seen her be rude to anybody, but she will not deal with people who are rude to her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you brought this up because 2017, I did my first convention, and it was my first time really traveling anywhere. First time on my own. I'm the only one in my family who's ever been in a plane. And it was when a Canadian actress, Lisa Langlois, invited me to assist her at a horror film convention.
I remember that.
Yep. And I remember when I landed in Toronto, she told me to call her when I landed, and I did. And she instructed me to get on the shuttle bus, and it would take me to Union Station, and that's where we met. And of course, she showed me the ins and outs on the subways and streetcars, because we don't have them here. I'm now pretty well versed in them now. But after I dropped my stuff off, she asked if you wanted to have dinner, or was I jet lagged and wanted to settle down. And I said, no, you know what? I never, like Fredericton, we got some big buildings, but nothing like Toronto. And I was just kind of like awestruck. And I said, let's go to a restaurant. I say, you pick the restaurant, I'll buy, you know? And I remember just sitting down. This was an actress I knew since the 80s through a movie called Class of 1984, which was an early film with Michael J. Fox. But there was very little show business talk. She asked me a lot of questions about where I'm from. And we just talked, and now we're good friends. We're very good friends, and anytime I go to Toronto, I contact her, so that we can get together. But
Well, that's how Dawn was. When Dawn met a
yeah.
new person, it was like, where were you raised? How many siblings did you have? Where did you go to college? What makes you tick? What do you enjoy? What do you dislike? She really wanted to know what made people tick. A curiosity about life and about how things worked,
Mm-hmm.
which made her an awful lot of fun to be around. I was often a house guest in her house, and I'm a night owl. I'm up half the night and I
Oh
sleep in
yeah.
the morning. Not Dawn. Dawn was up I mean, Dawn was a good name for her because she was up before dawn. And inevitably on my bedroom door, and it's like 5:45 in the morning, she says, get yourself up. We're having coffee and we're talking. And we'd sit in her kitchen in t-shirts and have coffee. And she would just discuss everything she'd heard about on the news, and she woke you up. I mean, you not only got awakened out of bed, but she woke your soul up, and it was a lot of fun. I miss her terribly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I sad when she had passed away, and of course everybody remembers her on, Gilligan's Island and stuff like that, But she, very funny.
Yes.
Yep. But I love being able to look at some of these, and I've been doing this podcast now since 2015, and I've had a few guests like yourself where I got to sit and have a conversation with, and make a connection.
Right.
And it's always fun when that happens. You mentioned obnoxious. Is there anything you want to go into of performers that you've seen that were obnoxious?
I've had a couple of them be obnoxious with me, which surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell one. Robert
Okay.
Stack. Robert Stack was a big star in his day.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in the 90s. I was working on my first book about Lucille Ball. I say first book because the second one is coming out for Christmas,
Ah.
the new Lucy book. But the original, the Lucy book, I was in first class lounge, not because I was in first class, but I was in the lounge. And there was Robert Stack. He'd done an
Mm-hmm.
episode of the Lucy show. I wanted to interview him. So I went over to him and I said, Mr. Stack, this is who I am. Oh, yeah, I've heard of you, which is always nice. When we get to New York, we were going from Los Angeles to New York. Could I have an hour in your hotel? He said, Jeff, we've got 5 hours to kill across the country. Why don't we do it on the airplane? I said, great. And he arranged for us to sit. This is back when they still had the big wide body airplanes. And there was a little cove they had for the flight attendants, like 2 sofas that faced each other with a little curtain. They could take off their shoes and catch their breath before they came out again and were nice to us. And he arranged for us to have coffee and like cookies served there. And I'm asking him questions, nothing about Miss Ball's personal life at all, but questions about, and out of nowhere, he said, what is it with you gay men? Why can't you let these ladies die? Why do you keep dining on these dead ladies' bones? Why do you keep rehashing their lives? And I looked at him and I said, my idea to have this interview on the airplane, I arranged for us to sit here and do this like this. Who arranged that, Mr. Stack? Me or you? I said, if you're not having a good time talking with me, let's stop. I don't ever want to be an annoyance to you. He said, oh, no, finish it. Let's hurry up and finish it. And I was sitting in business class, not in first class, but on the aisle. And I go back to my seat and I'm like, oh, shoot, this did not go well. And it hurt my feelings. And also I felt badly for him that somehow I had annoyed him. And I see walking towards me from first class, like 7 flight attendants walking towards me. I went, oh, shit. He's arranged for them to give me a parachute. They're throwing me off the airplane. I mean, why would the entire staff be walking towards me? And the lead flight attendant had her hands behind her back and she said, on behalf of American Airlines and Mr. Stack, we want to apologize for how you were treated. And she put in front of me what she had been hiding, which was a magnum of champagne. You know what a magnum is?
No, but
Okay.
champagne tastes good though.
take, and it's only expensive champagne that gets magnums. Take a normal bottle of champagne and multiply its size so that it's, for those of you who are watching, it's about as far apart as my hands are. And for those of you who are only listening, it's maybe 2 feet long. It's very expensive. That magnum of a champagne then cost hundreds of dollars. So he was a jerk with me, but he made up for it.
Mm-hmm.
I also had that with Andy Williams, where I
Okay.
was interviewing him by phone. Again, he agreed to it. I didn't put a gun to his head. And I just happened to mention that I'd seen his brother and that I knew his brother. And he got very terse with me. This is supposed to be about Ella Fitzgerald. Why are you talking about my personal life? I said, I'm not asking you any questions. I'm giving you a hello from your brother. And the rest of the interview was very cold. I mean, it was just like 4-word sentences. He said as little as possible. And again, I thought, oh, this is another Bob Stack. And about a week later, I get in the mail from him VHS cassette tapes of Ella Fitzgerald's performances on the Andy Williams show because he was sorry he had been terse with me. So at least these people made it up
Mm-hmm.
to me. I'm trying to think, was there anybody an out and out jerk with me? Uh, do you know who Al Goldstein was?
I know that name. Yes.
Al Goldstein was the publisher of Screw Magazine. And for a
Okay.
brief period of time in the 1980s, I was his editorial assistant, meaning I actually wrote everything in the damn thing with his name on it. He could be very dismissive and rude and crude. I won't repeat the things he used to say or the people he used. That was not a happy experience for me. But for the most part, there are people who are at my level in the business who I feel treat me kind of shabbily because they're jealous. But the actual people who have actual talent, I mean, real talent, they for the most part have been wonderful to me. Again, lucky, lucky, lucky. They recognize my talent, which is always wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
They see me as a peer. They treat me that way. It's usually the ones who are terribly insecure about their own talent or who have not ever really made it in show business or wish they had or want to be, or they kind of dance around the outsides of the business but have never really accomplished anything themselves. Those are the people who can be rude. I think the big ones, the ones who have worked hard and have honest talent, honestly treat you well.
That's awesome.
If you treat them well, you know. The
Mm-hmm.
other part of that is if I was a jerk to someone, then maybe they'd be a jerk back in response.
I'll share a situation I had that I never met this person, but I think she handled me poorly. Is I interviewed a stunt person back in 2016. I've had him on twice. Lovely man, wonderful stories. You know, he had worked with Clark Gable, John Wayne, Lee Marvin. He knew Marilyn Monroe when she was Norma Jean. This guy was absolutely the best. You know, I've had him on twice. He's now in his mid to late 90s, and unfortunately, his memory's starting to go. But I've been blessed to have interviewed him twice and gotten a few autographs in the mail from him. He did something that I was okay with. I don't think he did anything wrong because I think he trusted me, which is always a blessing. And this wasn't his fault. I think it was poorly handled on somebody else's end. But during the interview, you know, he was part of a franchise of films and franchise of horror films, actually. And we got talking, and he says, I know this person quite well. There was a particular actress that he worked with in one of these movies, and he says, would you like to have her on your show? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And he says, I have her number. And I said, well, don't give it to me right now because we're recording, but let's do it off air or through email. And he was like, oh yeah, I keep forgetting we're recording because we're having such a wonderful conversation. But he said, she would love to do your show. And I was like, oh, great. And he also did this with me with another stunt person. And I'm like, are you sure? And he said, yeah, they would love to do your show. And I was amazed that he trusted me with these two numbers. I never contacted them right away because I didn't want to come off. I did unsettling. I didn't want to unsettle anybody. Here's what happened though. What changed my mind is that we unfortunately lost Dick Miller, who was in so many so many movies, especially for Roger Corman. And 5 months before Dick Miller passed away, he was on my show. What a wonderful interview. And I didn't even have him on my list to reach out to, you know. I just noticed he was doing a lot of the cons. And I was like, I wonder if he'd do my show. I'm glad I reached out when I did, because another 5 months, I've been too late.
Right.
And he was a wonderful interview. His wife was in The Graduate, and she hooked it up, and she come on there with him, and wonderful. When he had passed, I was like, wow, maybe I should contact these two individuals. Now, Dick Miller passed, I think it was January 2019, and I'd interviewed the stunt person back in 2016. So it was some time had passed. Now, the actress, I remember sending her a Facebook message, and I know she read it, never responded, but I let her know that I'd done this interview with the stunt person. And I said, at this part of the interview, he lets me know he's going to give me your contact info, but I wanted to do it through writing here first. She read it, never got back to me. Well, after Dick Miller had passed away, I made the decision that if something happened to these two individuals, I didn't want to go the rest of my life like I had their numbers. I could have reached out. So I reached out to the other stunt person that I was given a number to, got an answering machine. I left a message, and he mentioned how I had his info and said that you could talk to the stunt person I got the info from, he will confirm it. Never heard back from this guy. In the story. No harm, no foul. The actress, on the other hand, did something that I've never really heard of before, and I'm really appalled because I end up looking like the bad guy. I call her number. I get an answer, and I say who I am, and this person says I have the wrong number. I'm like, okay, I apologize. I say, have a nice night. And maybe I dialed wrong or something, but I contacted the stunt guy, and I told him about it, and he said, that's her number. And he was very, very baffled. And I said, you think maybe I might freaked her out? And he said, no, she'd never do that. She'd definitely do your show. And I was like, okay. I didn't contact her for a while. What had happened is I got my name as a co-producer on a movie that she was involved with. I was not involved because she was involved. I was involved because of that franchise of horror films that a bunch of the actors were assembled in this one project. So when that started to get going, a few months later, I made another call. This time, the person answering claims to be her cousin. So again, I politely mentioned, this is how I got your info. I said, my apologies. If you'd have her get back to me, this is my email or blah, blah, but this is my number. Thank you. Sorry to, my apologies for intruding on your evening or whenever it was. Come to find out through another person that I was involved with as a co-producer on this film, that this actress was unsettled that I called and that I spooked her, and I'm like, that was news to me. And I got viewed as a stalker, even though this woman lives in California. I haven't been to the States, let alone California. And it pissed me off how this went. Because the stunt person that I had contacted, whose number I got, never got back to me after I left a message. I left it. And that stunt person was a bigger performer, no more worldwide than this actress. And I left that be.
These things happen with people. And sometimes you just have to let go of it. It's happened to me recently, and I think you've read it. Many, not many, but I don't know how many years ago, a bunch of us who were friends
Mm-hmm.
were asked by a certain, what the hell, Ross Shaver came to
Mm-hmm.
us, and we were a bunch of comedians and comedy writers and directors who met together for dinner every month, and said, we are doing a benefit for Mort Saul. Would you please contribute? Would you please show up? And then the really big stars in the room, Jonathan Winter, Shelley Berman, would you do publicity and perform? And I was there, and I was in the green room with like these comedy giants. And I posted a photo about it when it happened. No biggie. About 4 years ago, I posted it again. I came across the photo. No biggie. It came up on Facebook as a memory for me, like last week. But oh, what the hell? And so many people have now died in the photo. Maybe the fans would enjoy looking at it. Well, I got a private message from Ross Shaver. Shame on you. You're a liar. You were never there. You were never in the green room. You and I have never met, and you know that, blah, 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 blah. And of course, he blocked me from answering him.
Of course.
So I went to his fan page and reminded him that not only do we know each other, but he came to this dinner and sat next to me and personally invited me to be at this thing. And I said the same thing in an open message on Facebook. He told me all the comedians who were there were angry at me. And my answer was, I'm not Facebook friends with hardly any of them. If they're looking at my page, cool. Who knew they were looking at my page? I don't think all these comedians were angry. I think one or two people, for whatever reason. Now, it's the third time I've posted it in like 10 years. Someone got a hair up their ass and turned this into a drama. He is a nice man and a talented man and a handsome man. I don't know why he felt the need to do this. I would have said, hey, Geoffrey Mark, I don't recognize you. How do you say you know me? How do we know each other? And I would have told him, and that would have settled it. I don't understand why people choose drama. And certainly nobody's apologized to me. And I kept his name out of it on Facebook because I didn't want to get into a slapping match with him. There's no reason for that. I think somebody whispered in his ear, one cranky person whispered in his ear, and it is very, very possible that all these years later, he doesn't remember who sat next to him. I buy that. It's very possible he seems to know who I am, but it's very possible he did not remember I was a member of the group was called Yarmy's Army, that I was there. It's very possible he did not remember. It's also possible my look keeps changing through the years. Maybe I look different enough. But why accuse me without first making sure that you're right?
Yep.
That was his choice. It hurt me so badly. Literally, I took to my bed for a day. I felt so badly about it. And then it's like, screw this. I don't think Ross meant to hurt me. I don't think there's evil in his heart. But, you know, we never know. We don't know when people do things like this, or this young lady with you. Is she a pot smoker? Is she a pill taker? Is she on coke? Is she on other drugs? Does she drink too much? Has she had other stalkers in her life?
She has had a stalker. Um, the stunt person that put me in touch was Ted White, who I absolutely admire. And he's worked, like I said, Clark Gable, John Wayne, he told some stories. And we talked once uh during the pandemic. I gave him a call, but now I'm told by the guy who books him for cons that it's on and off whether he recognizes them anymore, which is really sad. But Ted White was wonderful. He didn't do anything wrong because he trusted me. He
Look,
trusted me.
it just works out this way sometimes, and we have to let go of it
Hmm.
and move forward, because carrying the pain doesn't do any good. People get angry with us, or they resent us, or they accuse us of something, and then they go on with their lives. We're the ones still sitting in it. They're not thinking twice about it afterwards. So they
Well,
don't
it
keep.
goes beyond that. Like the stunt person he put me in was going to put me in touch with was Kane Hodder. But Kane Hodder, he didn't respond. I'm not angry at Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder, if I see him at a con, maybe I'll bring it up. He'll probably, oh yeah, Ted, because Ted did his documentary. The actress was Judy Aronson, who was in a movie with Ted White. And Judy is part of a film that I have my name on called 13 Fanboy, where money was raised on Indiegogo to raise funds for it. And at the time, I couldn't now, but at the time, I was able to put $3,000 in on that movie to get it made.
There you go.
And I did a lot of interviews from it. But and even the most recent time I contacted Judy, when supposedly it was her cousin at that time, I mentioned, I'm a co-producer on this movie, trying to let her know I was involved in this project, and this is where I got your number. And I was very apologetic, but I think there's a million ways she could have handled that better than the way she did.
But that's the way she knew how to do it. You always have to remember, they can't read our minds, and we as people, this is therapy, folks. This is Canadian therapy. If you're listening in, this is Greg Gilbert and Geoffrey Mark having Canadian therapy.
Yeah.
That if we have expectations of other people behaving the way we would, we're a lot of the times going to get disappointed. Yeah, you would have handled it differently. I would have handled it differently. I would have handled my situation differently, but we're not those people. All we can do is accept the fact that this is how they've behaved, forgive them for it, and move on with our lives. I don't mean to denigrate anyone you've mentioned. These are not huge stars you're talking about. These are not people who are going to make or break your career, or bring bounty to your life. They're just folks who happen to be in the business, who might have been a nice half-hour guest for you on a show. Let it go, because there are bigger and better things for you up ahead, with people who will treat you better than that. And we just don't know what's happened in these people's personal lives at that moment that make them react this way. So let's assume on Ross Schaefer's part and on this lady's part that when they reacted to us this way, something was going on in their personal lives that was twisting their tails, and we just got in the way. So, that's it. Let it go. Let it go. There are bigger and better guests for Greg Gilbert coming up.
Oh, I had one last year. It took me 5 years to get her, but I got her. I finally made connection. I had Nancy Allen on last year,
Very
who
cool.
is he was in Dress to Kill and
I know.
RoboCop and Carrie.
Yes, of course.
It took me 5 years. I was very patient, very persistent, and very polite. And how I got her was I discovered when another actress, Wendy Jo Sperber, had passed away, whom she'd done a couple movies with. Wendy Jo has started We Spark Cancer, a charity, and because Wendy died of cancer, and she enlisted Nancy as an executive, and Nancy's an executive to that now. And I made a donation to We Spark Cancer Charity, and that was how I got my foot in the door. I was happy to help the charity out, but I got the interview, and that was awesome. So yeah, I've had some bigger guests, and
I think, quite frankly, I don't mean to cut your show. I don't mean to cut you off at all.
mhm.
But we're coming down, not on the wire. We've got about 20 minutes left of this show. Let's
Mhm.
talk about some happy stuff. People have disappointed us. Maybe you and
You
I
want
could
me
talk
to
about it private.
want me to tell you one of my happy things?
Please.
All my life up until 2020, I hated Valentine's Day until 2020.
And what happened in 2020, Greg?
I had Tony Basil on my show.
There you go.
I always love that because she does not celebrate holidays because she was always in show business. So growing up, she was always performing.
Sure.
But I always wished her a happy Valentine's Day because I was like, you made me love Valentine's Day for the first time. And she's quite a performer. And watching,
Very, very talented woman.
oh man, she still got it. She still got it. And I can't thank her enough for not only coming on my show, but allowing me to not feel heartbroken on Valentine's Day because I was like, yeah, I she talked to me on Valentine's Day,
Cool.
and that was awesome. And I ordered 3 of her T-shirts, so I was I ordered 3 because I couldn't stop at just one. They were just so good, you know.
There you go. Hey,
But
why don't you pick a favorite classic TV show from the golden age of television? Why don't we spend some time talking about that?
it's a TV show. Wow. I know we talked a lot about I Love Lucy.
Yes, besides Lucy.
You know something? For me, classic, I always think back to the 70s, but to go further back in the I Love Lucy time is the Honeymooners and Jackie Gleason. Because I was first introduced to Jackie Gleason and Smokey and the Bandit. And then I get to know a little more of his background and the Honeymooners, you know?
Most of our fans, most of our friends who are listening, people still think that The Honeymooners was a half-hour film sitcom. That there are 39 episodes that got rerun. Everybody watched it after school or late at night. And there's so much more to the story. So let's tell our friends about that.
Sure.
Jackie Gleason had been a comedian
Mm-hmm.
in nightclubs, a little bit in burlesque. He had gotten a foot in the door doing some films in the late 40s, but not big. He didn't really make it big in early films. And he wasn't really all that good on radio. In 1949, he came to television doing the first version of The Life of Riley. It was terrible. He was terribly miscast. But the show invented the laugh track. So I guess we're glad or we hate the fact that it was there. After that, they realized what he needed was a variety show. And the old American Dumont Network In the 1950s in the United States, there were 4 networks: CBS, NBC, ABC, and Dumont. And on Dumont, Jackie was given a variety show. And on this show, he was playing different characters. And he wanted to do, from his memory of a child growing up in Brooklyn, one of those couples, they can't live together, they can't live apart. They adore each other, they hate each other kind of couples. And they came up, his writers came up with Ralph and Alice Cramden. The original Alice was Pert Kelton, who was terribly Irish and understood the neighborhood Jackie was talking about. She was perfect as Alice. She was exactly what you would expect. Almost nice looking, but not quite. Uneducated, kind of a shrew, difficult to deal with. She married this fat guy because she couldn't find anybody else, stuck in life. And it was very funny. Art Carney played a cop in the first one. So for 2 seasons, The Honeymooners was a sketch inside of a larger variety show. If they had just a few good jokes, it was 5 minutes long. If it was a wonderful idea, maybe it took up almost the whole hour. Well, when Red Channels came out, a magazine that blackmailed people who they claimed were communist, she was in it. And Jackie had to fire her. And he was lovely about it because he put out a press release saying that she had a heart problem, that she couldn't perform because of a bad heart, and she got replaced by Audrey Meadows. At the same time, the show moved from Dumont to the much bigger CBS television network, where again, The Honeymooners was a sketch inside of a variety show. And Jackie was working very, very hard, 39 weeks a year, playing multiple characters and singing and dancing and having guests. And it was getting tiring for him. So what he wanted to do was bifurcate, put into 2 pieces, the variety part of his show and The Honeymooners. So he produced a show without him that was all the singers and comedians and Elvis, where he made his first TV appearance. And then
Nice.
The Honeymooners was then filmed. They did 39 of them, and Jackie felt they couldn't keep up the quality because sometimes the idea they came up with was only worth 5 or 10 minutes. And sometimes they had great ideas, but they couldn't give him the 40 minutes it was due. So the next year, Jackie came back with the Jackie Gleason show again. And one more time, it was a sketch inside. And it kept that way on different variety shows all through the 60s. Audrey Meadows left. They brought in Sheila McRae, and all the color ones are with Sheila McRae playing Alice. And then in the 70s, they revived it again, and Audrey came back to the show playing Alice. So it's this very long history of these 4 characters of Ralph and Alice and Norton and Trixie. It's not just those 39. And I quite frankly like the live sketches better. There is a taste of anything can happen here because it was live and Jackie Gleason did not rehearse. He had a stand-in, rehearse with his cast, and then Jackie would look at the final rehearsal, see where he was supposed to be. He had a memory like an elephant. He read it once and had it. There were no cue cards, and they winged it because half the time he didn't know what was going on. And when Jackie would do this thing on his stomach as he was walking around the apartment back and forth, that told the other actors, I don't know where the fuck I am. And that's when Audrey or Art Carney would have to come in to feed him some lines to bring him back into the situation so he knew how to resolve everything. Those I enjoy more.
That
But
was
it's a
smart. Yeah.
long history of these characters. And he was true to them, even when he was older, much older, playing the characters. It was a little silly to believe that they were still living in a 1-room apartment like that, or that Ralph hadn't gotten a raise somewhere along the line, or that Alice hadn't gone out and gotten a job and increased their money a little bit. But he kept the character true. And it worked. It worked the same way the Lucy character worked for Lucille Ball.
Do you think that the Honeymooners played an inspiration in All's in the Family?
Yes and no. All in the
Okay.
Family is not based on the Honeymooners.
I know
The
that.
Flintstones is based on the Honeymooners.
Yeah.
In fact, Jackie was going to sue them and thought better of it. It's only a cartoon. Well, look what happened there. All in the Family is based on a British sitcom called "Till Death Do Them Part,"
Oh, okay. All
and it
right.
was about a very conservative, lower class London guy, his scatterbrained wife, his liberal son-in-law, and his sexy, sex-starved daughter who was always looking to have sex with her husband. And Norman Lear saw this and thought he could adapt it for television. They did a pilot with different people playing the kids, didn't work. They did a second pilot with different people playing the kids, didn't work. Finally, they hired Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers, and they did that pilot, and that was the first episode of the CBS series. So that also was years of trying to get that put together. Carol and Jean were always Archie and Edith. But it took a long time to get that on it. Then once Norman Lear got that on its feet, he exploded. And it was everything. Sanford and Son is also based on a British sitcom called Steptoe and Son.
Okay.
They Americanized it and made it an African-American cast. So no, I don't think Ralph Cramden was prejudiced particularly.
Okay.
Alice Cramden was not stupid or scatterbrained, maybe uneducated. Nor was Alice Cramden as nice as Edith Bunker was. Edith Bunker was a saint. She was an angel. She was the heart of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Alice wasn't that nice. Alice gave back to Ralph just as much as Ralph gave to her. So different set of situations.
Well, that I do know that All's in the Family, of course, was a landmark, very controversial, and of course, it led to other sitcoms like Roseanne and one of my personal favorites, Married with Children. I love Married with Children. um, and
and also, A Life of Riley precedes it. A Life of Riley was about a loud-mouthed, uneducated guy who wasn't terribly good to his wife and didn't know what to say to his kids. He had no wisdom to give them, getting into trouble because he was kind of dumb, thinking he's very smart, but not. So these kinds of characters preceded even the British shows. There's been a market for this kind of a dumb guy going all the way back to silent films. It's what the writers bring to it, and it's what the actor can flesh it out with. And Carol O'Connor was an amazing actor.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think I'll ask you one more question here. You're mentioning British. When I think British, one of my favorite things that comes to mind when it comes to entertainment is Monty Python. I love Monty Python.
I do too. No, I do too.
Have you met any of them and have any stories?
I have met several of them, not to have dinner with them, but nice to meet you. I admire your talent, kind of thing.
Okay.
I think Monty Python greatly influenced Saturday Night Live and SCTV in Canada. There had never been a sketch show like that before, although there really was. There were several sketch shows, almost all of them in some way having David Frost involved.
Okay.
Either as the producer, a writer, a host, a narrator, something. And the different Python guys worked on these shows in 2s and 3s as performers or writers or producers. And I don't think they thought much of it. You know, British TV has always been different than American TV. American TV has always been these very long seasons of shows And then they took 13 weeks off in the summer, and you come back and you do it again. British TV has been, oh, we'll do 10. And each season is called a series. Oh, and the next series we'll do 12. And then when we have some good ideas, we'll come back and do 8. So there aren't that many episodes of Monty Python done over several years. But they did it so brilliantly. They brought in the cross-dressing so brilliantly. They handled gay characters so brilliantly, and theater of the absurd so brilliantly. In lesser hands, Spam.
I can't
Spam,
picture.
spam,
I
spam,
can't.
spam, spam, spam. It's wonderful spam, glorious spam. I can't imagine any other group of people carrying that off, and the audience not going, what is this? This is so dumb. But somehow they made that work. The Dead Parrot sketch.
Oh boy.
They went on Saturday Night Live, Eric Idle, and I forget who the other guy was.
John Cleese.
And they tried the parrot sketch. It died on Saturday Night Live. The American audience didn't get it.
Oh, it's one of their funniest sketches.
It is. And they greatly influenced Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
Another Canadian group who are very, 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 very funny. And I am honored that some of them have come see me perform.
I love that movie, Brain Candy.
To have them in my audience and to be able to interview, introduce them from the stage is like, yeah, I really love their talent. I love sketch comedy. I would have loved to have done it when I was younger. I auditioned for Saturday Night Live and didn't make it, but I love sketch comedy. That kind of theater of the absurd sketch comedy, as opposed to. I adore Carol Burnett. I adored Sid Caesar. Sid was a friend. Carol's an acquaintance. But I prefer the theater of absurd sketches. And that's mostly Canadian and British. It's a different set of muscles. It's a different way of looking at life. And funny.
I can't picture Terry Jones unless he's in drag. Oh my. Are you familiar with the Trailer Park Boys, speaking of Canadians?
I've heard of them. I am not familiar with the work.
I love the Trailer Park Boys. I think they're hilarious.
I think it's wonderful that since the 70s, that US comedians who do sketches and Canadians who do sketches and Brits who do sketches have all kind of come together, and each influences the other, and we each sort of go to each other's houses and play with the other one's toys. I think it's wonderful. It has enlightened humor in the English language that we've intermingled, because British humor and Canadian humor are not exactly the same. And Canadian humor and American humor, US humor, not American, US, because you're Americans too. US humor is not the same. But I love that some of us have gone to Canada and England, and some of the Brits have come here and to you, and how many of our famous comedians are Canadian. Obviously, living up there and having cold weather makes people very, very funny.
I guess so.
And handsome. Take a bow, Mr. Dimples.
Actually, this guy's not American, but have you ever met Robin Williams?
Yes.
I'm sad when he went the way he did. He's an amazing comedian.
I was closer to a couple of his best friends. So his death, besides mourning for an incredible one-of-a-kind talent, I also mourn with my friends who were just devastated to lose him.
Yeah.
Mental illness. So many people in show business deal with mental illness on one form or another. And it's not to be made jokes of. It's never a bad character or lack of having ethics, or people who commit suicide or people who can't leave the house. Burt Reynolds had that in his last years. He was agoraphobic. He wouldn't go out of the house. When you're dealing with that
Oh,
kind of mental illness,
I didn't know that.
well, I shouldn't have said it, but I said it, so there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are a lot of things I know about that I won't talk about because it only serves to make other people look bad. But if it enlightens, I don't mind talking about it. Thank goodness there is good mental health help out there, except one has to be healthy enough to reach out for it. But the folks who are so weighed down by the mental illness, unless they've got a loved one who's willing to advocate for them, how many of our comedians have unfortunately, stand-up comedians have unfortunately chosen to end their lives early. And it saddens me because to a one, they were attractive and very, very talented, very funny people.
I've
And
heard all good stories about Robin Williams, people that knew him.
Greg Girardo. I mean,
Yeah.
how wonderful was he? How handsome was he? How funny was he? But something inside
Yeah.
was eating away at him. And you know, before we started this, that in 2 minutes, I have to say goodnight to you, or good morning to you, or good afternoon to you.
Yeah, and I gotta hustle off to a workplace because somebody had quit. But you know
So,
what? I'm glad you never quit, you know.
no, sir.
You're still sparkly. You still wear really cool clothes.
Thank you.
The best I could do is a yellow submarine shirt.
Well, you know what? Some of us need sparkles and some of us have dimples. So there you go.
My cat likes that. I got Kitty. Oh, he's over there sleeping now. That on the camera was too much for him.
Well, I'll leave you with one thought. I'm wearing a hat that says hope. There's an
Yep.
awful lot of stuff happening in our world that isn't so happy right now. Health things, war things. Whenever you are actually viewing this or listening to this, something's going on. Please
Mm-hmm.
have hope. Life with hope leads to a better future. And if you lose hope, that's when you begin going down the drain. So, all of you who are watching and listening, please have hope in your hearts. And as I share and I end all of my broadcasts, and I hope you'll let me do it here as well.
Yes.
God bless and have a happy.
And you know what? Thanks for remaining in touch. You're so well spoken. I'm going to tell you, to the people that like Ella Fitzgerald and Lucille Ball, Steve Allen, they are honored to have you speak of them because you speak with a lot of knowledge and a lot of passion about these individuals. And I love having you on here because of the way you present yourself, whether we're doing a tribute or whether we're talking about your career.
I'm happy to be on. Don't wait another year to have me back.
You know what we should do? And we should do this in more detail is do a tribute on Milton Berle because
Happy to.
it
Happy to.
sounds to me that we only scratched the surface with him, and he sounds to me like somebody that you had an extraordinary connection with. And if I do,
A brilliant, very complicated man. And on
well,
that note, sir, I must depart, unfortunately. I'm so thrilled anytime I get to perform for my Canadian friends. So I'm glad you were here and I'm glad you guys are watching and listening.
absolutely. God bless you. Thank you so much for blessing me with your talent and your energy and your passion today.
My
Always
pleasure.
love having you on here.
I look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. You take care.
Bye bye now.
Bye.